And welcome back to Beyond the To-Do List, a podcast about productivity. I'm your host, Eric Fisher, and in this episode, I'm excited to share with you a conversation I had with Dr. Harry Cohen, author of Be the Sun, Not the Salt. And in this conversation, we're talking about the heliotropic effect in human behavior, that just like plants gravitate towards sunlight, people naturally respond to warmth and encouragement and positivity. And Harry is sharing practical ways to elevate others through kindness and presence and avoiding the salt. How sarcasm and negativity and dismissiveness can erode connection and morale. And that these are skills that you can train in others as well as yourself to reduce friction and increase your productivity in your relationships. So if you're looking to cultivate greater and more thriving relationships and make a difference in the world around you, this conversation with Dr. Harry Cohen is for you. Well, it is my privilege to welcome to the show Dr. Harry Cohen. Harry, welcome to Beyond the To-Do List.
I'm happy to be here. I love how relaxed and chill you are. And let's see if we can do some good for all of your listeners and the world.
Awesome. Well, I think that's what we're all about here. And it's definitely what your book is all about. So the book is called Be the Sun, Not the Salt. And you're a psychologist and an executive coach, but you've gone into the science here a bit. So let's talk about that. You use the word heliotropic, and I don't think that's a common word for a lot of people. So let's start there.
Let's start there. And maybe by the end of my life, it will be a common expression and people will know what it means. It means the tendency for all living systems to be drawn to energy which sustains life, which is why a plant tilts towards the sun. That's an example of the heliotropic effect. It is drawn to the positive energy of the sun. Human beings are drawn to the positive energy of other human beings in the same way. That is the heliotropic effect. And therefore, our job in life to be more successful, fulfilled, and happy, productive, and truthful, reverent, and brave is to be more of a positive energizer, more heliotropic, and less of a de-energizer, what we call being the salt. Ergo, the book's title, Be the Sun, Not the Salt, like salt on the roots of the plant, not salt of the earth. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. I was going to say, salt of the earth is a good thing. Salt has its purpose. But for this metaphor, in other words, it definitely has a negative effect. So
exactly. Don't be salty. In other words, we, in the tiniest ways, can be heliotropic, more uplifting and a positive energizer for anybody around us. And the world is a better place. And we can be a little bit less salty, a little bit less irritable, irritated, angry, pessimistic, cynical, and on and on and on. And that's what the little tiny book is about. That's what my life's work is about. And hopefully someone listening to this will go, I think I understand that. Let me see if I can do that some more.
Yeah. Now, somebody might be thinking, well, this is a productivity podcast. Why are we talking about being sun instead of salt, or doing good instead of adding to the negativity that we scroll through and see every day that's emphasized? Sometimes it feels like more so than the good that's out there. And I would say it has to do with systems that we're working in or with, and it definitely has to do with relationships, and not just for a, betterment of the world, kind of vague, warm, touchy feelings kind of a thing, but for the reducing of friction in those relationships, in those systems.
Ooh, the power. You put it in simple terms. Why should I do this if this is a productivity podcast? Well, because you will be more efficient by reducing interpersonal friction. Nice phrase, dude. I'll steal it because it's true. Interpersonal friction is inefficient and it's also ineffective. So, you can't have an efficient marriage. You can have an effective marriage. Okay. So you want efficiency and effectiveness in your life, but as a productivity hack, if you will, you'll do a lot better by having less friction in your relationships, personally and professionally. Let's just stick professionally. You want to get more stuff done? Have people like to work with you. How about that? Clarity of communication, keeping it simple. Don't complexify issues. Make it easy for people to work with you, around you, for you. Everybody wins. Productivity goes up when you're not being a jerk.
That's a great. Now I want to steal that phrase right there.
I was going to say something like asshole, but I made it nicer and said jerk.
Yeah. Well, and so I mentioned earlier, you're talking about this heliotropic effect where we naturally lean in towards what we need. However, often what we see is the negative. We see the news. We see the this. We see the, did you hear about such and such? They did that, the rumor mill, the gossip, whatever form or fashion that takes on social media, television, all of the, face-to-face, all of the above. And it can feel like the negative is stronger than the positive. But you talk about that, where our brains are wired to look for problems and difficulties, but that doesn't mean we don't need the sun.
No, in fact, it's the reason we do. Because we're wired to see the glass half empty, that is from an evolutionary perspective, when we hear a snap in the woods, we don't think it's anything good. We are geared to think that there's something bad around the corner to keep us alive. We're geared to see bad things, mistakes, defects. Your kid brings home 5 A's and a D. You say, what's with the D? You don't say good job on the A. So that's our brains. That's how we're wired. That's fine. The reason we need to over-index on the sun is because of that. Because the dominant media, social media, everyone around us wants to talk about how things are horrible. We have to counter that with 5 times the attaboy to 1, what were you thinking? We really have to over-index on healthy behaviors internally so that we are not influenced adversely and negatively by the dominant culture, which is overtly negative. Media, if it leads, it leads. That's true. The reason the algorithms are designed to get you outraged is because it stimulates your stickiness to the outrage. It's an addiction. So guys, that's what marketing is for. Don't be succumb to the marketing geniuses that want you outraged. So that's why.
And that's
really
that 5 countering every one negative thing with 5 positive things is known as the 5-to-1 ratio. There's some science behind that.
You bet. And the science behind that is because the negative stings and lasts longer, we have to overcome that negative bias by adding more deliberate expressions of and seeking out of all of the positive truths in our life. Media doesn't like to talk about, it's a lot better than it used to be. Media and people like to say it's worse than it's ever been. That's actually not true. It's just plain empirically incorrect from, lifespan to health span to everything else. That being said, people don't talk about how great it is. People like to talk about how crappy it is. I got a text this morning about how do the people in your company stay so positive given the state of our country? It's like, and my answer was, we focus on what we can control and the 100 years that we've been around and all the amazing things that we're doing and our friends and family and community and our customers. And that's what we focus on. We do this for 100 years. And so on and so on and so on. But he just wanted to talk. I didn't even respond with, I know, ain't it awful? He was taking a shot at the country in which we live. And I made a point of saying, well, we do business in all different countries. And, we roll with whatever is in any country.
Yeah.
I just didn't take the bait. That's the practice. That's what I've gotten good at. And I'm going to get better at it.
And it ends
Don't take the bait.
Yeah, it ends up being a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way.
Ain't it? You know what I can't stand? No, but I'm about to hear and I'm not interested. You know what I mean? Like, I deliberately don't engage today's chapter. I read a chapter every day. They're 1-page chapters. It takes me 30 seconds. Today's chapter, Hold the Salt. It's August 12th, chapter 12, Hold the Salt. That means don't say anything that isn't helpful, necessary, kind, will further the conversation. All of the things that I could say, zip it, Harry. Now that's a practice. That's an activity. That's a productivity hack. Are you saying something that will be helpful? No, but it pisses me off. Keep it to yourself. Just not saying stuff is victory. Not doing stuff is victory. Not losing your cool, not losing your temper, not losing your equanimity. That takes a little bit of effort to take a breath. Good. Do it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, what are some ways that, you've been reminded of it this morning, and that's one way. Continually remind yourself, choose what inputs that you're allowing into your life, et cetera. But how do you catch yourself, or how can people catch themselves when they're about to pour salt, as you talk about, instead of shining the sun?
Oh, I love the question. First of all, I was just listening to Arthur Brooks talk about all of his wisdom on happiness research, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. Anybody can follow him on any of his platforms. But one of the things he was saying is that all of his messages are great, but they're not sticky. So how do we make this sticky? First, you have to understand it, which I do, and I hopefully people will listen to this going, I get it. I understand why moment to moment I have agency, I have choice, I have the ability to choose sun or salt, and how powerful that choice is. That's intellectual. I get that. So that's one thing I understand. Number two, I practice it every single day to the best of my abilities. I read a chapter. I think about it. I practice gratitude by writing things that I'm grateful for. I refrain from saying negative things when I think them. I read, listen, watch, and look for opportunities to continually practice this, like saying yes to this podcast. I get a lot of requests to do a lot of things. Will this further my mission? Is this consistent with my purpose in life? Absolutely. So I'm continually fueling this good wolf, if you will, to add to tiny behaviors, little tiny things, saying please and thank you, saying good morning. When I get irritated, I let my irritations be my teacher. There was a great phrase I heard recently, which is, let the weather be your guru, which means whatever the weather is, that's your teacher. Oh, okay. It's raining. Get an umbrella or wear a raincoat. Oh, it's sunny. Stay in air conditioning or shade or in the water. Do whatever it takes to respond to the weather, which I have no control over, so that I'm enjoying it. So my point about letting things be my teacher, that's how I practice this. When I find myself getting salty, which I do, I let getting salty be my teacher. Dude, what's that trigger about? Dude, you're smarter than that. Come on, man. What are you swearing for? Why did you let the fact that the coffee machine is out of water throw you into a little tizzy? I swore at the coffee machine the other day, but I laughed right after it because it was a trigger to remind me, dude, relax, will you? Just put some water. Point I'm trying to say is this practice, I can remember sun versus salt. Was I heliotropic? Was I sun or was I salt? Did I react with a scowl, with a frown, with a sneer, with a nasty comment? Ew, dude, don't do that. Pick another metaphor. If I'm playing a sport and I dub it or I miss it or I whiff it, great. You got another chance to swing again. Every mistake is great. Do the next right thing, which is a chapter in there. Let our mistakes be the reminder. Oh, okay. Talking about productivity, I got daydreaming. What a waste of time. Okay. So regain your focus and do something in a task-oriented way. Okay, great. I asked ChatGPT this morning, what's a great productivity hack? ChatGPT said, chunk your days into allotted pieces of time that you can accomplish certain things. I passed that on to you. I thought that was a useful thing. Good. I want to be continually learning. I want to be continually challenged. I want to be continually practicing being an expert at this. Now, that's a lifelong learning quest. I'm okay with, on my deathbed, I think I got it.
Well, and you talk about this becoming something that becomes automatic for people with practice. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean it's automatic 100% of the time, but it becomes a higher percentage over time.
That's it. That's it. A higher percentage over time, which is what I'm going for. I'm going for 1% more heliotropic habits. I want to make my heliotropic habits more automatic so that I don't have to think, oh, I should say God bless you after he sneezes. When somebody sneezes, I just say God bless you. When someone's heading towards the door, I hold the door automatically. I smile at a stranger deliberately. Now, I didn't say this morning, but I could have and should have. How are you? I didn't start our meeting with that, but, I'm trying real hard to make you feel great in this podcast because I want to do that automatically. I try and do that without having to think about it, but you're exactly right. I practice this so much so that my life is better because I'm leading by teaching, by doing. You know what I mean? Like people say when I'm giving keynotes or talks, wow, he was great, but he was the message, which really is impressive because what it means is it ain't anything I'm saying. It's who I am that comes across. I'm an imperfect, vulnerable dude who's just trying to live a good life and pass it on to others. And I think people could feel that because it's what's real.
Yeah. One of the things that I caught was, I think there's a chapter called literally Be Helpful. And you mentioned the Hippocratic Oath or the principle that's in there, do no harm. And that right there would do a lot of people more good and less harm. But it goes beyond just doing no harm. It goes beyond don't throw salt or, give people salt. It's intentionally pivoting and doing the sun instead.
Dude, I said, would you help spread this? You're a super spreader. You get this. Will all your listeners go buy a book? And I'll do a separate podcast just for the listeners. We can have a separate one for just them. Because what you just said is the whole point. The fact is you got the book, you read the book, you imbibed it. More importantly, you are living it. That chapter 2, Be Helpful, that could be the whole book, which is just don't say anything that's not going to be helpful. Just refrain from saying that. If you're a doctor and a patient comes in you, don't make it worse. And you can make it worse by saying, oh boy, this is going to be horrible. I've never seen anything so bad. Oh boy, you got a bad situation. I have a great doctor and he always gives me hope no matter what I got. You know what I mean? No matter what the extent of the injury. I happen to have bladder cancer, but it's great. I'm 5 years in remission, but he's great about it. And even when I get a terrible musculoskeletal thing, he doesn't make me feel like, oh man, what did you do? He's like, okay, here's what we're going to do to treat it. And you're going to be fine. I love that. So, giving people hope if you're a doctor is huge. Being there for other people is huge. Being the sun for yourself and others is really easy and huge. I love that you get it. So I'll stop talking because I know that talking too much is salt out.
No, not necessarily. I feel the sun from you for sure. I think some people would hear this and say, okay, but like day-to-day business, I'm working with a coworker, a team member, or a subordinate, or even a leader upwards, and I have to have a hard conversation with them. Well, not throwing salt means I shouldn't talk about this hard thing with them. That's not what you're saying.
Absolutely not. And I'm really glad you brought that up. Having a hard conversation is being the sun, but it's doing it in such a way that is very impressive, very authentic, very necessary. It's a cleanup that needs to be addressed. It's a correction that needs to be made. It's a reorienting of a plan. It's stopping something that is harmful, but it's not doing it in a pejorative or an ego-damaging way. It's done holding someone accountable in a way that makes the other person say, thank you. This was a difficult and tough conversation, but really necessary, important, and I'm glad we had it. Which doesn't mean someone might not feel a little bad about it, person giving it, person receiving it. That's okay. I've both delivered and received many difficult conversations, and they're always difficult. So what? Do it anyway. Being the sun means honoring the person enough. This is one of my favorite expressions. I want the best for you and the best from you, and I don't think I'm getting the best from you. I want to have this conversation because I want more from you, and I know you're capable of it. I've seen you capable of it. I want that level of performance or conduct or whatever. If you're a coach or a parent or a colleague, that's what we're always after, which is bringing out others' best in a way that might be, wow, that's tough to hear, but thank you. Appreciate that. That I can integrate and use behaviorally. You're not talking about my personality. You're talking about me when I do something well, me when I don't do something well. Let's talk about the 5 A's and the D. Dude, I love the fact that you got 5 A's. Whatever you were doing to bring out those performance metrics are huge. Your D is also important. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that your 5 A's is incredible. So let's talk about ways that we can bring up your grade, because that D is unacceptable and I'm not worried about it because I know you're the same guy that got those A's. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. I love that you're bringing the 5-to-1 ratio into that difficult conversation. That's definitely helpful. The other thing that I thought of was basically keep applying the plant metaphor here and say, I want you to be the best plant you can be. It's not best for you or for me to come in and just throw salt. I'm having the difficult conversation as a way to shine sun in your life and give you a path forward to lean in and be more healthy.
You are exactly right. And the metaphors are very useful for explaining complex things. So if you stick with the plant metaphor, and we're all living, breathing organisms, living creatures, call us a plant. What do we need? We need nutrients. We need fertilizer. We need to be staked when it's windy. We need water. We need sunlight. We need proper temperature. We need to be, mulched and weeded and pruned, all that pruned. You got something growing on you, buddy. We need to cut that out. That ain't good. Okay. And so we want you healthy and thriving. My job as the master gardener around you is to help you thrive. And that's what we want you to produce fruit. We want you to produce offspring. We want you to be an amazing organism. My job is to provide the nutrients and protect you from the elements and prune where is necessary. If we're on the plant metaphor, you can look at somebody and go, that person is thriving. They're producing. They are doing well. Man, are they happy. Well, what are the conditions that are producing that? Let's get more of those conditions. That's what I want for myself and for others. And for people to not ignore that person's, starving, drowning, that person's parched, that person, what's going on with that person? We want to bring out the best in the culture. Look, I own a business, a small restaurant, thousands of customers come through there every month and hundreds of employees. Well, we have to create a culture where people are really taking care of one another and the customer and everything else. And it's nonstop. And that's okay. It's a great, environment to practice this. And it's not impossible. It's completely possible to have a very successful environment to produce everything: customer engagement, customer experience, employee engagement, employee experience, a profitable business, and joy. So, I'm never done. I never will be done. But let's help more people get this so they can get on this train. And this is the only book they'll ever need. Then the rest of their life, they just get to practice it.
One of the things you talk about is how something that can completely change the tone of a workplace conflict, since we're kind of still in that vein, is embodying, or you advise that we should embody or assume positive intent. And that not only helps create the environment that they can come in feeling good about it, but that they then, on the reverse of it, can come in to a conversation like that, especially on a second and third time. Oh, well, the first time they've got my back. In other words, they support me. Whatever it is we're going to talk about, I assume it's a positive thing, even if it's to talk about something difficult.
Love that. I love that you understand it completely. The practice of that is the whole kit and caboodle of all of this stuff. Knowing ain't doing. There's a chapter in there, knowing ain't doing. The knowing that we have to practice assuming positive intent requires effort. when someone is late, when someone disappoints us, when someone does something that we find off-putting or just plain wrong, let's start with a positive intent and let's get to what actually happened after the fact. But that mental first blush, assume positive intent, is a disciplined mental activity. We have to work at it. When you've been burned many times by many people, you can easily assume negative intent. The reflex is he's a no good Nick. Why do you say that he's a no good Nick? I've dealt with him before. That's unfortunate. You know how people can assume negative intent as the first approach that they have. It's just plain unfortunate. We have unconscious biases and we have to be able to challenge them. It's unfortunate in every context to work at, wait a minute, let's not jump to any conclusions. Let's listen deeply with curiosity before we jump to any conclusions. That's very hard to do. That's okay. A lot of this work is hard to do anyway. Do it anyway. You know what I mean? You know, it's good for everyone and productivity, to your point, to first assume positive intent. It is not easy.
And it has a lot to do with perspective, which is something you mentioned multiple times in the book. Why is that such a core theme for you?
Well, interestingly enough, I was just listening to someone teaching me that the importance for long-term happiness is to have a philosophy that makes you small. The ability to cultivate perspective allows you to have some distance. The ability to give other people's perspective allows you to be a wise sage in an environment where wisdom is a very, very, scarce commodity. So keeping perspective, helping others to have perspective, turns out to be a very effective leadership quality for performance and happiness. And, how you get perspective, certainly age is one way. So how do you teach a 20-year-old to have perspective or a 15-year-old? Well, it's not as easy as a 65-year-old because a bunch of decades allows you and I to have perspective because of our life's experience. As best you can, we have to live this, teach this, and be open to continually learning. I'm so interested in learning how to have better perspective, teaching other people to have better perspective. Love to have your listeners opine on this, but perspective is like exercise. It's really important to cultivate, to make it part of your life. It gives you way more literally vision. In other words, if you get higher up, you have higher, you know what I mean? You can see further, right?
Further horizon.
You can see the horizon. So, well, wait a minute, I'm lost in the woods. Why don't let's climb a tree and we can see where the hell we are. Oh, the metaphor is a beautiful one. Let's see where the hell we are. I seem to be lost. You get higher up. Okay. I know where we are now. That's the point of it. Imagine we could have a perspective creation machine that would take us to a higher point and we go, oh, okay. I see the horizon. I see where we are. I see where we've been. I now know where to go. Head left. I love it.
Yeah. How can leaders create a team culture that's more sun than salt without it feeling forced?
Love your question. Feeling forced is by definition wrong. The only way this works is that people are genuinely interested in their own way for their own reasons. Everyone's reasons are different. So find what works in your team, with your culture, and I would say let's converse. I know lots of companies and teams and leaders who use this book to have a conversation. Let people have a conversation in their own way. What do you think chapter X, Y, or Z means to you? I literally was talking to a two-star general. This is on our podcast. And she said one of her team, this is a military team, they say, hey, you know what day it is? No, it's day 12, chapter 12. Oh, right. Hold the salt. What does that mean? That means nobody's going to say anything obnoxious in the meeting today. Ha, ha, ha. Whatever they do, they use that, which I then took upon myself to practice making it my own to use this material to make it my own. You will make it your own. Let leaders make it their own. Let it become their own authentic way to be. That is how to make it real and authentic. I was giving a talk at a military facility, and the general apparently wanted to meet me because he put this book on his reading list. And I couldn't believe it. And I went and met him. And he said, we were just talking about your book today, page 33. Now, I wouldn't know what page 33 is. And there's one phrase on page 33, and it says, keep it simple. That's what he was talking about. Now, I didn't give him any, I didn't even know that he was using the book, but he was using this as a way to help his people not complexify issues. Great. Don't make this too complex. Make it yours. Keep it simple. How can I be uplifting and a positive energizer? To your question, how can we create a culture where people are energized? I got an idea. Why don't we tell people when they're being the sun and call them out? Great idea. I mean, I'm just making that up.
Yeah.
Why don't we come in and say good morning to every single person instead of just going and sit in our desk? Great idea. Oh, are you going to make that a rule? No, I'm just going to say that I'm going to do that. You know what I mean? You make it a rule and people go, oh, you're just saying that because they made it a rule. Yeah, you're right. Don't do that. You know? I like people find their own way. You know what I always say, well, what's the best exercise to do? The one that you do. The one that you do regularly and consistently. Well, what time should I do it? The time that you'll do it. Well, there's a million ones to do. Should I go to the gym? Should I do resistance? Should I do what you can do regularly that you enjoy? Oh, that's the best exercise. And you have to find what exercise works for you and then do it. Every day? Yes. Every day? Okay, you can miss a day. I mean, come on.
For somebody who feels like they're in a salty environment, what's the first move you'd tell them to make tomorrow?
Two ways I think about that. Protect your roots, number one, which is make sure that the salty environment doesn't make you sick, doesn't make you ill, doesn't sap your energy to such a degree that you are really suffering from the conditions around you. So let me just, say the second point is, if that's the case, you need to make a plan to leave. That's a marriage, that's a work environment, that's a circumstance that is unhealthy for you. You should get out. Now, if it's not that unhealthy and you just want to make it a little bit better, oh my goodness, there's so many things that you can do. You're not going to leave the marriage or the work or the job, but you can do a lot of things to do a lot of self-care and not join in the fray of negativity exuding from you. So really lean into basic hygiene self-care. And basic hygiene self-care is all of the elements that keep you healthy. That's get enough sleep. That's every night, get enough sleep. That's eat right, eat foods, take in, I use an acronym, keep score, SCORE. Sleep is number one. Consumption, what you put in your mouth and your mind body. Mind body includes media consumption, food consumption, drink consumption, substance consumption. Really be mindful of what you're putting in your plant, but you're feeding the plant, right? Media is one. Food, be careful what you feed it. Food, liquor, other things, right? Okay, so that's consumption. Get outside. You have to get outside. Empirically, being outside for even 5 minutes is better than 0 minutes. Try 10 or 15. So get outside. This is self-care hygiene stuff. The R stands for invest in relationships. Any of them, personal or professional. Do a kind deed for a loved one. Send a note to a loved one. Enrich a relationship, including a perfect stranger. Say, here, let me hold the door. Let me buy you a cup of coffee. Relationships are the elixir of life. Invest in them at work, at home, distant relationship, or even relationships with past loved ones. You can write things, okay? And lastly, exercise. This is hygiene stuff, but exercise is good for you. All of that will help you keep immune from a salty environment. Then, of course, refrain from joining in. Don't you hate it when, you know what I can't stand about her? You know what Cheryl said? Just gently, there's, several chapters in there. Make your first word a breath. Learn to walk away. Don't hang with people who are negatoids. Don't engage with people who want to feed the bad wolf. Don't do the next wrong thing. Do the next right thing. Look to be deliberately helpful in tiny ways. All of those things keep you from being infected and affected by the negative environment. So I was just rattling off a bunch, but they're endless. They're all things that make you feel great about yourself or others. There's a little tag in the inside of a workout shirt. Viore has these little sayings that I discovered on the inside of the thing, and one of them is, stay close to anything that makes you feel alive. I just thought that was a great little quote. It's a lovely suggestion. If you're around something that makes you feel alive, do more of that. So those are all of the things and qualities, from keeping score to hygiene to doing kind deeds for others, that'll keep you immune from a salty environment, unless it crosses a threshold. And then I'd say, make a plan to get out. Really, if you live in an environment where there's a lot of lead in the water, in the air, you need to get out of the environment. It's not healthy for you. Using the metaphor of lead as salt.
Yes.
So
yeah,
not good.
Very helpful. Harry, you've tied it all together really here. So I'd love to point people to where, one, they can find the book, find out more about you, your podcast, all that good stuff. Where can people go to connect with you and the work you're doing?
You're such a great podcaster. You're doing such a great job. Thank you. BeTheSunNotTheSalt.com. That website has everything you could possibly want to know in bite-sized form, from 90-second clips. I mean, you can follow us on Instagram too, Be the Sun, Not the Salt. I do little 30-second, 60-second reminders of all of this stuff. BeTheSunNotTheSalt.com. The website has tons of free videos. I'm on a lot of little TV shows talking about the same thing. My podcast appearances, our own podcast. We've done 50 of them, and this now will be on our website. And I'd just love for more people to get this and imagine one day this becomes part of the cultural zeitgeist, and people say, oh, I'm sorry, I was a bit salty there. I'm just trying to be the sun. I cut you off. Go ahead. And it's a reminder that's easy, available to everyone, and it nudges us gently to be more of our best self more often.
Well put, well said. And Harry, thank you for sharing your insight, your wisdom, your expertise. And I was glad to have you here. Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope all of your listeners, hey, the Audible book is only $4. But I hope all of your listeners buy a book and then give it to somebody else. If you really like it, make it a gift, give it to somebody else. If you don't like it, geez, what should you do? I don't know. If you don't like it,
pass it on anyway.
Pass it on anyway to somebody who might like it, but don't keep it on your shelf, but really give it away. Let's do some good together.
Well, that's another podcast crossed off your listening to-do list. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Harry Cohen, and I hope that we were able to give you some sun in this conversation. And honestly, as a reminder, you don't have to change the world to make a difference. You just have to change how you show up in it. And again, these are small, micro level things that you can change about how you show up in your relationships, whether that be personal, whether that be career oriented and work oriented. It's going to reduce a lot of friction, and less friction means more efficiency and effectiveness and productivity. If you found this episode helpful, and I hope you did, would you do me a favor of sharing it with somebody that you know needs to hear this? Think of that person that you were thinking of as you were listening and shoot it on over to them. Hit that share button in your podcast player app of choice or over at the show notes at beyondthetodolist.com. Thanks again for sharing. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next episode.